voted for Brexit because they felt powerless. They felt unheard by a political establishment that had not listened for decades, and frankly, the tragedy is that the political establishment is still not listening and people still feel powerless. Now, the referendum campaign and the subsequent narrative about Brexit have been a litany of misinformation and disinformation. The infamous words on the side of the bus are just the tip of the iceberg, but let's start there. Whether that was the £350 million a week has been diverted from the EU towards the NHS. Well, as we've heard already several times this afternoon, the simple answer is no. If the public hoped for a transformative sum for the NHS post-Brexit, they most certainly have not received it. Turning to the economy, during the Chancellor's recent autumn statement, he spoke for almost an hour without once acknowledging the economic catastrophe of Brexit. No reference to the OBR's warning that it will slash productivity by 4%, lead to a 15% drop in trade intensity, an 11% drop in investment, that it will increase food prices, deliver lower wages, workforce shortages, and the highest inflation in the G7. Yet, whilst the government continues to keep its head firmly in the sand, denying anything other than positive outcomes, it cannot begin to adapt and resolve some of the many problems we're hearing are caused by Brexit. Misleading the public includes by wishful thinking. And who can forget those endless conjurings of sunlit uplands, ignoring reality, only telling half the story, cherry-picking and frankly plain lying. It all happened during the Brexit campaign, and it's happened since. Independent scrutiny and inquiry would help to set the record straight. People voted for Brexit because they felt powerless. They felt unheard by a political establishment that had not listened for decades, and frankly, the tragedy is that the political establishment is still not listening and people still feel powerless. Democracy, scrutiny, accountability, responsiveness have all been victims of Brexit. Evidence and experts were derided, Parliament was illegally prorogued, international law has been trashed. From unsettled constitutional questions to opposition to a ratification referendum, from the impact on the incredibly precious Good Friday Agreement to the dangerous retained EU law bill. Opposing a public inquiry into these matters, frankly, only adds insult to injury. Now, returning to my constituents' view that the Brexit decision will probably not be reversed, I have to say that it is with great sadness that I see that the Labour leadership has capitulated to the tyranny where even to talk about rejoining is somehow judged to be anti-democratic. I want to talk about it. The Green Party wants to talk about it. I think the public deserves that we should talk about it. If rejoining the EU is the right thing for our economy, for our environment, for workers' rights, for young people, for our public services, for trade and for more, then we should take that step when the time and the conditions are right. But I want to talk about the status quo in this country too, because the Leave vote was a howl of rage about legitimate concerns which have still not been addressed. The social contract remains broken, the power game remains rigged. We didn't leave the EU because of anything that happened in Brussels or Strasbourg. We left primarily because what had happened in England. And I believe one of the reasons that in England there was such a howl of rage was that because, while devolution has given powers to Scotland and Wales, not enough, but some powers, at the same time there are no political institutions that represent England, nothing to give political expression to our complex, rich reality, nothing to bring power to the regions of England. No wonder people voted to take back control, but they want control from Westminster, so they have the right to be able to make decisions about their own lives here. And so rethinking of our constitutional settlement more fundamentally, I think, is also key to mending some of the divisions in the UK. Brexit was the result of a divided UK, and it threatens to divide us still further unless we build a democratic consensus about changing that together for good.
Hear, hear.